Okay, evening. Okay, we'll get started for today's session over here. Right, so as usual, okay, this is our weekly Monday market analysis, and of course, what we'll be covering is to share with you some of the events that you want to take note of for this week, and then we'll look into the charts, share with you some opportunities as well, some trading setups that potentially might get involved for this week itself. Okay, and after that, we'll have the Q&A segment. Okay. So this session here is sponsored by Everything Trading. Okay, so quick disclaimer as well. Everything that we're gonna cover throughout this session is based on educational purposes. Of course, we're gonna talk about trade opportunities, market analysis. Okay, so it's important that you understand the risk involved. Okay, and of course, trading involved risk itself. Okay, so if you need any official, financial, professional advice, do make sure you consult the respective professionals. Yeah. Okay. So with that said, let's jump into Forex Factory calendar. Okay. So you can keep an eye on what's some of the events that we want to watch out for. Okay. Now tomorrow we do have a couple of speeches coming in from Bank of Japan as well as Bank of England, as well as ECB. Okay, so while they are not likely gonna be very significant and important events, you still want to have an idea that that may create potential volatility depending on what they might say. Sometimes it's just a slip of it, and then the market picks it up, and then there's a huge movement. Okay, so you just want to be prepared that something might happen. But personally, I don't think those events are likely going to be huge. Simply because these are not they are not something that central banks directly deal with. Okay, because if you go into like some of these details of it, okay, it's not something that directly revolves around monetary policy. So I don't think it's going to be huge. Okay, but just be aware as I mentioned. Okay. Other than that, we do have pretty much quiet week throughout all the way until Friday, where we have this core PCE price index. That will be important because the core PCE price index is another significant data that the Fed actually tracks. Okay, to keep track of inflation. Okay, so over here you can see the market is actually expecting a drop from 0.6 last month. To this month here, slightly slower increase to 0.4. Okay, so again, a major deviation of this data may have much impact in the market. Okay, because again, this deals with inflation, and that's still one of the primary concern. So other than all this, I think this week is relatively quiet as compared to the previous one. Okay, so not much in terms of the fundamental news that you probably need to be overly concerned with. Right, so with that, let's jump over to the charts. Okay, that's weird. How come my arrow is gone? Okay, so let's take a look at the dollar index first. That is very interesting. Somehow my little arrow is gone over there. Okay, let's start off with dollar index. Okay, so dollar index, last week we actually ended off Friday with a slightly impulsive bounce off the low at 101.9. So as of now, seems like we may get a corrective structure. Okay, and ideally by tomorrow, if we see price continue to pull back a little bit correctively towards this 50 and 618 fips, around 102.60 to 102.50. That would definitely open up a buy possibility for the dollar. And over here, we are anticipating a pushback all the way to the previous top, giving us a bigger ABC, right? So do keep an eye on the dollar. If we do get, in fact, a corrective pushback, maybe tomorrow, even going into Wednesday, then that may be a very solid buy opportunity for this week. So if you don't trade the dollar index directly, then definitely look into the euro. Okay, so euro again, quite inverse on the dollar itself. Last Friday we actually saw this little push down. So the peak right now, this little mini high around 1.0930. As long as the market maintains below that, okay, and we seem to again get a pretty corrective pullback at this moment. So this might take a day or two. So either tomorrow we're gonna see this, or maybe building into Wednesday. Okay, it doesn't really matter whether is it tomorrow or Wednesday. I think if we're gonna see this corrective pullback within the next 2 days, we definitely have a sell opportunity. Okay, and we're looking at this all the way back down towards the previous low, which is 1.0520. Okay, so this one here definitely you want to keep an eye on, because I think if this goes up correctively, we have a very decent and clear opportunities where we can actually look for a decent risk reward of 2.5, right? So definitely pay attention to this potential setup over here on the euro. Okay, quite clear structure as well, yeah. Then we have the pound. Okay, so pound dollar, as of now, it seems to have completed potentially what we call a leading diagonal. Okay, especially after this little strong push at the bottom at 1.18. So right now we're expecting at least some form of a bigger corrective pullback, and then if that's gonna be the case, this would be a bigger one. This would potentially build up to wave 2, and then we can write this up all the way, right? So that will be then wave 3. Okay, so do keep an eye on this. I don't think that you're gonna get this in the next 1 or 2 days, because you want this to come down correctively ideally. So this trade setup may come to you maybe on Thursday or Friday, even maybe next week. Okay, but just be patient. As long as we continue to see this coming down correctively, probability is due to the upside, and we definitely want to focus on that, because if I bring you to the daily scale, okay, it's a way we are actually looking to trade the 5th wave up. Okay, and of course internally here we have that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Potentially that. So we're looking to capture from a daily scale the upside, and then from a 4-hour time frame, we're looking to catch the wave 3. Okay, so then this would ideally also build up a huge upside opportunity. Okay, so do keep an eye on that. Aussie dollar for me right now is not the best place to be trading. Okay, we're kind of expecting this to continue to drop a little bit more. If you are more of a short-term trader, of course you can look to capture this. Not a lot of movement that you can really profit from. The potential here is let me do a quick mental math. That's about 60 pips give and take. Okay, not something that is really exciting. Okay, but as I mentioned, if you're a short-term trader, 60 pips may be something that interests you. Okay, the thing here you may want to look out for is when the market comes back to this low, we may get a bounce. Okay, the reason is because we have already been seeing this drop quite significantly. And from a bigger time frame structure perspective, this is the 5th wave structure up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This move down here may have completed, right? But of course, is there a chance where we may see this coming back and retest this low? The answer is yes. Okay. But for me, I think if you're gonna compare some of the opportunities that we have, I think euro and the pound definitely is clearer, and of course the profit potential is bigger as compared to Aussie dollar over here. Okay, so for me personally, I would not focus too much on the Aussie side unless you're a shorter term trader. Then yes, you may look to catch that, right? But for me, euro and pound would be better ones. Dollar Canadian is a little bit of a mix right now. We may either see this as a wave 4 completion and we get a move up, okay, to complete 5 wave structure, or okay, wave 4 may be still developing, which means that this may build up as something like that. Okay, so this is a 1, 2, 3. This is a reset, and then we expect another 1, 2, 3 to complete wave 4. Okay, before the push up. So that is also another possibility, and for that reason we are maintaining a rather neutral perspective right now and want to just see how this develops. Okay, if the market were to continue coming down a little bit and then goes up slow tomorrow and Wednesday, then there's a very good possibility we're going to see another push down, okay, and break this low for that move back up. Okay, so that may be the possibility because today market seems to be a little bit impulsive in that pullback, right? So if tomorrow and Wednesday we're going to see a corrective move here, then we expect one more drop. If tomorrow the market is able to bounce off strongly, then of course we can expect more upside from here on. Okay, so this one here is a little bit of a neutral at this moment. We're just going to give it time and see how it's going to develop going into tomorrow and Wednesday. Okay. Dollar yen, I think dollar yen here is pretty straightforward. We're still neutral because we're basically waiting for a decent correction. If we can get that, this is a short-term buy trade. Okay, so for the next 2 to 3 days, maybe going into Wednesday and Thursday, if you can see a corrective pullback over here, focus on the buy opportunity back towards 133.7 to 134.7, right? So it's about 15,618. And around this zone, there's a good chance that we may see that drop. Okay, so that's on the dollar yen. Decent opportunity if you can get a correction as well, but this is gonna come maybe Wednesday or Thursday. So euro dollar and pound dollar is likely either tomorrow and Wednesday, and then dollar yen over here is likely gonna be Wednesday or Thursday. Okay, so those are the time projections that we have. Okay, XAU USD, which is gold. Basically right now, I think this week for gold, you're not gonna get much. We're seeing quite a bit of an impulse. So we'll wait. Okay, the reason is because there are many different possibilities of how this can eventually play out. If this continue to just consolidate like that, a lot of impulses and then it's slanting to the outside, then there might be a bigger pullback. Okay, another situation over here is if this keeps coming down like that, okay, this can also build into a bigger corrective structure, and then in that case, we're looking for a buy. Okay, but whatever it is, I think this week you're not gonna get any potential setup simply because we're seeing quite a bit of a V's. You just probably leave it aside, wait until maybe closer towards the end of the week or even next week, right? I don't think this week you're gonna get anything out of the structure. There are many possibilities. Another one that some Elliott waivers may see is this may turn into a triangle. And then in that case, this is not going to be wave 5. This is probably wave 3. The triangle ends up as wave 4, and then we get another wave 5 up. Okay, but again, if this is going to be a triangle, it takes time, right? So there's no need to rush into any decision for gold right now. Okay. Crude oil. I think crude oil over here for the short run, this week, we may see a little bit more upside, especially if we can get a decent corrective. We can get one more push with $74. Okay, so basically this becomes a 1, 2, 3. Short-term traders definitely can keep an eye on crude oil if you are looking at commodities. For me, I don't really trade the crude oil directly, so I'm not too keen on this, right? But we're still keeping track of crude oil because this gives us a little bit insights into the CAD pair as well, because if crude oil strengthen, then there's a good chance the Canadian would strengthen too. Okay. S&P generally is still very corrective in its structure, so this week here we're expecting a little bit more upside. Potentially, if I'm gonna update this, should this continue to go a little bit higher, okay, then what we're gonna have over here. Okay, let me just update the label a little bit so it becomes cleaner, right? So this would probably end up being something like that. Okay, that would be the W, that would be the X, and again, we may or may not see that push all the way there. Even if it comes up here, that would be ideally possible, right? So something like that, and then drop. Yeah, so do take note of S&P. I think overall, as long as this is still respecting the channel, okay, don't be overly aggressive in buying. There may still be the chance where we can get one more drop, okay, kind of trapping some of those aggressive buyers before the overall major rally. Okay, so don't be overly aggressive for now. Okay, now does it mean that you want to look for sell here? if you get a setup like a crawl, okay, then yes, that would be ideal. But personally, I wouldn't suggest you to put a pending limit, okay, because you really want to observe how the market is gonna react around the area, right? If it's just gonna push up strongly like that, then of course the entire structure would change. Probably that, then this would be that 1-2 to start going higher. Okay, but the possibility is not very high. Okay, as long as, again, as I mentioned, it's still within the channel, look for downside. Okay. Pound yen. Okay, pound yen is more or less still, again, looking at short-term downside, because we can see this here as a channel. Okay, basically it's doing a lot of V-shape within it, right? Not the best ideal trading environment, but right now the market is kind of testing that 618. As long as I mentioned, if this goes a little bit higher, it still maintains below that channel, you can still expect more downside from here on. But it's not the best pair to be trading right now because of this V-shaped structures happening, right? That's on the pound yen. I think Aussie yen is more or less the same. Okay, we get a lot of V-shapes. But Aussie yen over here, if you can get a push up, a consolidation, a pullback here, then we have an impulse correction. We look for this trade. Okay, so if you're focusing on the yens, I think the dollar yen be a little bit cleaner. The Aussie yen would also be a little bit cleaner. Pound yen, probably you just want to avoid it for now. Okay. Another pair to focus on is definitely the pound Australia. Whether this is gonna build up within this week, need to just be patient and monitor how the market is gonna develop. But for now, this is definitely lacking momentum. Wave 3 and wave 5 is probably there. RSI divergence is building up as well. So we are definitely more inclined to look for sell trade. Okay, but right now we don't have that setup, right? You can see over here we're expecting first impulse push, a pullback. That will give you this trade. Okay, so for now you just wait out for it. The earliest possible setup that might come, at least on the 4-hour time frame, is probably around Thursday or Friday. Okay, if you can get that first push maybe tomorrow, okay, and then Wednesday and Thursday does a consolidation, and then Friday you can get this trade. That's the earliest possible time that a setup might build up. Okay. Last one here, Bitcoin. Not the best area to be trading right now. Again, whenever you see something like that, there are a couple of possibilities of how this can turn out, right? One way is to look at it as a potential crawl development. And then of course you wouldn't want to be buying. You want to look for a potential reversal if that's the case. This can easily turn into a corrective structure here as well, and then you look for a buy. Or this is gonna turn out into a triangle, right? So basically, you can see there are many possibilities of how it can play out. Right now, we don't have sufficient data points to kind of help us determine which one is likely gonna develop. So during such environment, we just leave it, right? Quite similar to gold. Kind of get a lot of V. We are trapped within this two environment, right? So we just leave it. Same thing as Bitcoin, right? Basically, market is basically bouncing up and down with it. Yeah. So those are some of the things to look out for. Okay. Hopefully that helps. Yeah. So yeah, I'm seeing a bit of a questions over here as well. Okay. So if you guys have anything, just feel free to type it in. Then I'll be able to look at it and answer questions along the way, right? So I see one here talking about crude oil, seeing ABC. Yeah, I think probably the similar pattern over here, right? It's just a different form of label. I usually like to put WXY instead of ABC. I use ABC specifically for flat. Okay, so just kind of distinguish that, right? But if you see this as an ABC, basically it's just a different label, but structure is more or less the same, right? We're looking at a 3-wave structure. Okay. Question I see over here as well. After completion of wave 5, do you consider 236 as a valid retracement, or do we expect a deeper one? Personally, I expect a deeper correction after a 5-wave move. Okay. The simplest form of expectation is always to pull Fips for the 5-wave move, and then you always expect somewhere between that 50 and 618. Okay, so we definitely expect a deeper correction after a completed 5-wave. Okay. Okay, so I hope that kind of helps for today's session over here. Quick one. Oh, I see now questions coming in. Okay. How do you differentiate the Gartley pattern from a three-wave pullback? Good question. They sometimes come in I would say overlap. Okay, they may overlap one another. Case in point over here, right? If you take a look at crude oil, okay, of course, depending on which X point you get, right? If you take it here, you might see a bad pattern. If you take it here, you might see a Gartley, etc. Okay, so let's just, for discussion's sake, right? Let's say if you take this high, okay, so if you take this peak, right? If you take this peak, then you would actually see this as a potential Gartley formation, right? Okay. So in this case, that would be a perfect path confluence, right? Again, for discussion's sake, if you take this high, okay, which from a harmonic point of view, you probably wouldn't take this high, right? You would take like the obvious one, which is up there, okay? But for discussion purposes, sometimes you may get the part where they come in quite similar. Okay, so in this case here, if you take this point, then this is a Gartley. And at the same time, within this Gartley, we also see a harmonic move, right, internally. So that's your ABC or WXY. So that's where they can't align, right? I don't think there's a need to kind of differentiate it because both type of analysis, both method basically tells you this part here, look for the sell. Okay. It's just that harmonic patterns usually we identify them a little bit more when market starts to consolidate. Okay. So something like what's happening over here. Okay. You may take it again. May not be the perfect of pattern for harmonic. But what we can see over here is if you take from this swing low to swing high, what we have is a pullback of 618. This goes back up, and then if this comes back down, okay, that would build into a Gartley as well, right? You can see that. Okay, and of course, confluencing with that is that if we also get a very decent 1, 2, 3, then this area definitely has a ABC, a three-wave structure plus a completion of a Gartley, right? So that's again another example. So yeah, my answer to that is you don't have to really differentiate it because most of the time if you see both, they're gonna complement one another. Okay. Another question, is there a double top on H4? Possible wait for a breakout at 1933 for a sell. Yeah, this may be a double top, okay? From Elliott Wave perspective, we seldom look at the market as a double top, right? Because if you look into the pattern of Elliott Wave, yes, Elliott may say that this is a truncation of things, or in some situation, if you see it as a regular flat, okay, then yep, you might see that double topish formation on it as well, right, as a regular flat. Yeah, but from most Elliott Wave pattern, we don't see it as a double top. Okay, so I know convention traditional patterns from technical analysis, that is definitely a double top. This is the neckline, and then based on that, a break of the neckline, you can actually expect equal length to actually drop, right? Yeah, so you need to be just clear in terms of your trade plan. Okay, what's the strategy and the approach that you use, right? Do you trade double top, right? So if you trade double top, then that becomes part of your setup. Then of course, you would be able to take the breakout and then you use whatever measurement method to put the target. Okay, I don't trade double top. Okay, my only setup are flags and crawl, which is a diagonal setup, right? My only setups are this. So I'm quite clear on that, on what I'm looking for before I get involved in trade, right? So for example, if this is gonna come down crawlish, okay, then that also builds out the opportunity for an upside from here, right? So that can turn into a 3-wave corrective structure. So just now we mentioned this can be wave 3, and then we expect another wave 5 up, right? Yeah, so that's my view on it, right? It's a valid double top for now. The only question is, can you trade it? All boils back down to what's your trading plan, right? What's your setup? Okay. Question here, S&P short-term sell. Yeah, just now I mentioned, if you are looking to sell, I think ideally you want to just see if you can get a crawl here. If you get a crawl, you know, this is overall very corrective. You look for the sell, okay? The thing here is you don't want to set a pending limit, right? Because as I mentioned, if this just piles up very strongly, you don't want to be in a sell trade, okay? See crude as that. Okay, maybe if you are talking about this, it's still a little bit too early to say whether. Okay, to be honest, I don't see this as a flat because this pattern here, if you are talking about this specific pattern, it's usually a flat for this pullback here, right? If this is a flat development, this pullback here usually come quite deep. Okay, but in this case, you can see it doesn't really come that deep. It bounces off that 618 and starts going higher. So the simplest projection of this is usually a 3-wave move. Yeah, so that's where we look at it. Unless you talk about it as a here, right? Then this is an expanding flat. But this did not drop immediately. Okay, and for that reason, you probably want to update this part. And for me, then simplest structure right now again is a 3-wave move, right? We always fall back to the simplest structure when things are clear. Okay, looking at the RSI, usually wave 3 and wave 5 builds up a divergence. Okay, so gold, right? So let's take a look at that. Yep. So this is still building up a divergence, right? As we're speaking, of course, this is very obvious here. Okay, so that's the part where a divergence doesn't necessarily mean the market is definitely going to be top, right? It can still keep going higher, and then this just basically continue to build a longer divergence, okay? And the market can still go higher. The part about divergence that I use is more of like, number one, it serves as a potential confirmation of wave 3 and wave 5. Number two, it basically tells me, you know, try not to buy it already because we're seeing that divergence. Don't try to buy the top, okay? Yeah, because the part here is if this doesn't tag this low and this just keeps going, but it goes up in this kind of format, okay? So what would happen is that we would still adjust this as wave 5 there. This is wave 3 here. This is probably wave 4, okay? Or wave 4 can still be here, right? And then this last leg up can still be internally a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we get that long little divergence, okay? So the label again is not the most important aspect. Okay, the label is, I always highlight, it's just a way to communicate the idea of what pattern we're seeing, what structure we're seeing. Okay, but at the end of the day, you want to look into what exactly the price is doing, right? If this is going to be a diagonal, then obviously, you know, it can still break that top. It can still continue to build up a divergence, but the market, we're going to hit higher, maybe a little bit longer before the bigger move back down. Okay. So that's the part where right now, if you're looking at this little piece here, there's really a lot of possibility of how the price can develop next, right? And the only way we will be able to know, okay, what would likely happen next is to just give it a bit more time to show us a little bit more like what exactly he wants to do. Okay? Because right now, it's still a little bit too early to determine that. Yeah. So I hope that helps. Cool. Okay, so with that, there are a couple of things, right, that we mentioned I think is worth noting for this week. We definitely have the euro dollar. okay, for potential trade with the pound dollar. This one here probably need to wait out until end of the week, but euro dollar probably by tomorrow, Wednesday, is the setup. Dollar yen over here, okay, if we can get a decent correction, we can expect one more upside. A potential trade within this week as well. Pound Australia, this one would probably be something similar to the pound dollar. You need to wait out until maybe end of the week for that potential. The rest of it, just leave it. Okay. Those setups may come maybe next week. Unless you're short term, okay, then look for Aussie dollar potential sell. Okay, yeah. Good. So before we end off today's session over here, quick little announcement. Okay, we're having, oops, wrong one, this one. Okay. We're having a upcoming offline event in KL, okay, but the session, this session here will be conducted in Chinese, in Mandarin. Okay, it's gonna be happening on the 15th of April, right? So in 2 weeks time, is on a Saturday. We're gonna be sharing a little bit about the recent banking crisis, okay, and how can we maneuver throughout this period of time. Is the banking crisis a good time to be investing in some of those bank stocks, especially when prices have been falling? We'll be discussing and sharing a little bit more about that. Okay, and of course we'll also talk a little bit about technical analysis and things like that. Okay, the venue itself has not confirmed, but the date is more or less fixed. Okay, so for those of you who are interested in registering for this, this is an offline event, so you need to be in KL. Okay. For those of you who are interested in this, how can you register? How can you RSVP? Again, okay, if you're watching this on Zoom, the team will actually drop the WhatsApp link. So you just click on it. It will direct you to the WhatsApp from Everything Trading, and then you can register with it. Okay, and for those of you who are watching on YouTube, if you go over to the video description below, you'll be able to see the link to the WhatsApp. Same thing, if you click it, you link you over to WhatsApp, and then you can WhatsApp them to tell them that you're interested in registering for this event. Okay. Another thing over here, I think, in fact, most of you probably would have already joined in, okay, is the Telegram group, or I would say Telegram channel. Okay, if you're not in, this is the QR code you can scan, and then it will lead you to Telegram in this channel, and then you just click join. So inside this channel, we share charts once a day, okay? And whenever we have events like just now, again, we'll post it up so that you get reminded, and then you can RSVP for it. Okay. Last but not least, if you're very new to Zenfinix is actually a broker. Okay, and they are currently having this promotion where if you open an account with Zenfinix, you make a deposit, you'll be able to get and enjoy a credit bonus, right? So for every $100, you're gonna get $88 credit bonus. If you put in $200 deposit, you're gonna get 96, and if you put in a $500 deposit, you're gonna get $140 credit bonus, right? So again, for all this, if you'd like to find out more, okay, same thing, click on the WhatsApp link. Okay, reach out to the team. Any questions that you have, they'll be more than happy to help you with it. Yeah. So that's all for me for today's session over here. All the best to your trading. Okay, and I'll see you guys next week. Okay, guys, bye bye.